Hello artists, welcome back to Art at Home with Mrs. Kellogg. Today's lesson, we are going to create a fun collage using a really important element of art, shape. We're going to use a lot of different shapes for this. Now, come over to my workspace and I'm going to tell you what materials we'll need for today's lesson. As I said before, we're going to create a collage. Now, a collage is when you take paper, could be photographs, and it could even be fabric that you take and you glue to a backing to make an art piece. So that's what a collage is. Now, let me tell you the materials we're going to use. Now, for the eyes and the nose, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have a few pieces of maybe some smaller paper. Okay, so just to show you, because see, you're going to need the eyes and the nose. The other thing, because since we're going to color in those eyes and the eyes and the nose, you could use colored pencils for that. I also recommend if you do have a black marker or a Sharpie is going to work best. That would work really well, or a black crayon. You're going to want to use that. So as I said, colored pencils you can use for coloring in the eyes. I'm going to take this one away so you can see. This, I used oil pastel, but if you want to use the colored pencils, you can. Okay, so definitely going to need paper for that, a few pieces of paper for that. And you're going to need to draw those. So you're going to definitely need some pencils and an eraser. Now, since collage is all about gluing paper, you're going to need a glue stick. You could also use Elmer's liquid glue. That might be a little bit messy, but the glue stick's going to work. I also work a lot with this Yes glue. It's an all-purpose glue, so if you have any of that, you can even use that. Now, collage, you can cut the paper or you can tear the paper. So I recommend that you have a scissors. Okay, so you can cut paper if need be. Now, the other thing you're going to need is the backing. So for that, you want something a little bit heavier than regular paper. So you could use cardstock paper. You could use even watercolor paper. You could even just use cardboard for that. And then the last thing is we're going to use the different types of paper to fill in the background first before we, put the eyes on there. So what you want to do is look for paper. It could be some wrapping paper that your family's not going to use anymore. I used some paper from an old calendar, so you could use calendar pages. You could even use junk mail, different envelopes. So any kind of paper, and I recommend choosing maybe kind of a color theme. So here I've got my blue, kind of a golden yellow, and a beige, and that's what I chose for my color theme for the background. You don't have to do that, so that's a suggestion. So once you choose the paper that you're going to use, then you want to tear it. I'm going to move this so you can see that better. You're going to tear it into strips. Okay. Now, last thing I want to tell you is for this lesson, you might want to break it up into 3 sessions. Like your first session is getting your paper and your materials. The second session is maybe making the eyes, the nose, and the snout for the dog. And then your last session would be gluing your collage paper to your backing, and then putting down the eyes, the nose, and the dog's snout. Okay, So now I'm going to let you go get your materials and I will meet you back here to start making our collage. So now that you have all your materials, we're going to start. So the first thing I recommend starting is making the eyes, the nose, and the snout and the bottom of that mouth. Okay, so let's get started with first making the eyes. So I'm going to leave one here and show you. Now, as you can notice with the fun part of this collage is that you really don't see the ears and all of that. If you want to put in ears, you can, but the big focus is the nose, the snout of the dog, and the eyes, okay? And if you wanted to do a cat, you can do that as well, okay? You would just kind of change up the nose a little bit, and I can show you that as well. Okay, so since those eyes are pretty big, so what I'm gonna do is show you, if I put my hand, 4 fingers going across like so, that's about how wide that eye is gonna be. So that, you know, you want it pretty big. Okay, so what I'm gonna start with first is the corner of the eye, and if you notice, those are triangles. Okay, so I'm going to start sketching that. Okay, so I have my one triangle, and see, I can kind of measure that. You know, I'm fitting about 1 finger. You might even fit 2 fingers in. Okay. And then I'm going to make a big curved line. So I'm going to make that big rainbow line. So, okay, so curved line. Remember in our last lesson we learned all about the different types of line. So you're going to use those. And, you know, you're going to, since we're sketching these out, see, I just keep going lightly over it till I get what I want. And I don't really worry about all the lines over that because I have my trusty eraser. That's going to help me. So see how I keep drawing over till I get the shape I want. Okay, now I'm happy with that shape. Okay, and I'm going to use my eraser and get rid of the lines that I don't want. Okay, so now that I'm happy with that, and if you don't want to put the triangle eyes, you could just make one big oval too. That's another way to do this. So again, I'm teaching you some different art skills, but you know, make it your own. Okay, so now I'm ready to cut. And turn your paper as you cut. That'll make it a lot easier to follow the curve. Okay, so I've got that. Okay, now I'm going to use this other side. But before I do that, I've got to make 2 eyes. So I'm going to lay this down and use it as a template now. And I'm just going to trace. Okay, so now I'll have about the same eye, size eye. And I'm ready to cut. Next part is I'm going to move on to the nose. Okay, so I'm going to move these to the side, and if you are doing this in a few sessions, I might, for example, fold another piece of paper or get an envelope where you can keep these parts in so you don't lose them after you make them. Okay, so the nose. So if you look at the shape of the nose, we're going to almost make a rounded triangle. So we're going to use, as you can tell, a lot of ovals and triangles. So remember, I was talking about a really important element of art. So here we're using a triangle and an oval. triangle, and an oval. Okay, so to do this, first thing I want to show you is, look, I can spread out my fingers and put about 4 fingers across, spreading them out like that. So that's about how wide I want to make it. So a good way to do this is I spread out my fingers, I put a line over here, I put a line over here. And then I am just going to come up a little bit, get those in. And see, I'm sketching lightly in the beginning, and then I'm just going to round that. So I'm kind of making not the pointy part, but the bottom part of a triangle, a little rounded. Okay, now I'm going to come down. For mine, I don't want it super pointy. If you make it really pointy, that's going to, you know, have more of a cat-like nose. So if you kind of want to make that cat nose, make it a little bit more triangular. Here's an example of a cat nose. So see, it's a little more rounded, and then it comes more in like a triangle. And I always look at it and see a bicycle seat. So see how it's a triangle and an oval. So we're going to use a lot of shape in this lesson, and a lot of our art projects, we use those elements of art, especially in drawing and painting, line and shape. 2 really important elements of art. Okay, so now I have that. So now I'm going to put in the nostrils so my dog can breathe. So the way I do this, I come down and then I curve. And I'm going to curve again. And I've got my nostril there. Okay. Dogs usually have a little line there. So I'm going to put that in. And now, see, I want to kind of make it even, so I just look, and I'm going to use, again, a little guideline there, or a guide dot. That helps me. So I'm going to come in from a little bit below that halfway point and do the same thing again. And remember, if things aren't exactly the same size, that's totally fine. It usually will give your artwork a lot more character. Okay, so now I have that. And I'm going to clean this up a little bit. And now I'm ready to cut it out. Okay, so now I have my nose. So I've got the 2 eyes made, and I've got my nose. So now it's time to make the snout. Okay, and you can the snout can be used. You can do it this way for either a cat or a dog, or sometimes you may not even want to put that top part in if you're making a cat. So that is up to you. So this is the shape for the snout of the dog, and this is going to be the bottom part of that mouth. So I'm going to place it like so. Okay, and I did that out of some of my collage paper. Okay, so I'm going to get just a plain piece of paper to show you how to do that. So now, shape again. So see how this is a half oval or a circle here. And then it's one big oval on the bottom. So that's how I'm going to think about it. I'm just thinking in shape. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch this out like I'm making a big hill. So that would be kind of my half circle. So again, I keep sketching. And look, I want to fit about, 4 fingers in there, I would say, would be a good way to measure that. Okay, now think of a pear almost, because you know how a pear comes down and then it goes out, but this, think of it, it's going to go out and be a really wide oval. And again, I sketch till I get what I want. Sometimes I'll even turn my paper upside down. And I kind of like freehand drawing like this because it ends up giving your artwork more of a unique look. And especially since we're kind of doing this fun collage dog face, it's going to give it a lot more character than if you just used a template from a copy machine, for example. Okay, so now I have that. And then the other thing I want to do is I want to have that half circle or oval for the bottom part of the mouth. Okay, and so when I look at that, for example, if I were to put that here, that one's going to be probably about 3 fingers inside. So that'll kind of give you the range for the size. Okay, so now I have that and I'm ready to cut them out. Then you're ready to start drawing in the eyes and the nose. So what I mean by that is, I'll put this to the side to show you what I'm meaning, is now what we're going to do is you can use colored pencil or black and white, and you're going to mix it to make some gray, or you could use oil pastels if you have that. And then what we're going to also do is we're going to draw in the colored part of the eye, which is called the iris, and then the pupil, which is the dark part, and then I'm going to put in 2 highlights. And then the side of these eyes, I'm going to color them all black. So again, you could do that with the colored pencils, or you could do it with marker. Okay, so that's our next step. So I'm going to start with the eyes and then move on to the nose. Okay, so when you're doing, for example, the eye, notice one thing that I did was I wanted to put a nice thick dark line around the eye because I know that's going to get it to pop a little bit more. And the other thing, just to let you know, see how there's going to be a little bit of black here and a little bit of black there, but if you don't have that on yours, don't worry about it. Okay, so my first step is, I'm just going to use this for now, like so. So I have that ready. Okay, now I'm going to use my pencil. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a curved line here. And then I'm going to put another curved line over here. Okay, and then I'm just going to, you could leave it like that. Or you could come in a little bit at the top. Okay, so I've got the corners of my eye and I'm going to color those black, and then I'm going to put in the pupil now. So I'm happy with that, and I'm going to put 2 little highlights. Okay, just to show you again. So this one I kind of had fun with. I put the 2 highlights here. Here I put it on the inside. So however you want to do that, you can put it each on the same side like so, or change it up if you like. Okay, so now I'm going to go over that with the marker. And again, if you don't have marker, but you have those colored pencils or another black marker, that'll be fine. Okay, so I'm going to trace that. And you'll notice I have a mat and a paper underneath because I am going to go off the page there. So I want to make sure I have a backing paper or mat or newspaper underneath, because I don't want to get marker all over my table. Okay, so then I kind of clean it up a little bit, make sure I got all my edge work done and I got the eye. Okay, now it's time to use color for the eye. So like I said, I was going to use oil pastels, but again, you could use colored pencils. So I definitely want to have some white handy, and I'm going to go in those highlights with the white. And I think for this one, I'm actually going to use blue. So I want a light blue and a darker blue. Now, anytime, like if I only had one shade of blue, I can always add white. That's going to lighten that blue. So if you only have one shade of blue, add white to it. And that's how you're going to get that effect. If you notice on this, see how I start dark, I go to medium to light. Okay? So I'm going to start with that. Okay, so then you're finished coloring your eye. So for me, I ended up using that light and dark blue and then blending them, keeping the darker going to lighter. Okay, now it's time for the nose. So I'm going to use black and white to make that gray. So a couple of hints right around the nostrils. It's pretty dark. I used marker to color that in. So I'm going to go around that. Okay, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay, and what I would recommend, just go right in with that white first, and then mix a little bit at a time the black. I'm going to put a little highlight at the top of the nose. Okay, now here's where I'm going to really blend it up. Okay, and just keep adding if you want it darker. So I want this a little bit darker. I'm going to add a little black, and then I'm going to mix in the white. Okay, and then I'm just going to keep working like that until I get it to look more like that. Okay, so again, you can keep it lighter, darker, however you like. Again, if you want to use different colors, you're welcome to do that. One thing just to keep in mind, if I'm going to make the nose all black and the nostrils black, I would lose the nostrils. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, and then I used collage paper. So I used part of a calendar page for the snout. So, I'm going to put that right in there, and I've got the eye, and then I would have my background paper for the collage. And I'm just going to flip this over so you can see. This paper, the size that I'm using is about it's close to a 9 by 12. So I'd recommend that size, and you can notice you can have the collage paper going off the page. So that is part 1 of our shape and collage video. So now you know how to make the eyes, the nose, the snout, and the bottom of the and the mouth. And now the next video, we're going to start collaging the backing paper, and then we'll glue on the eyes and the nose and the snout. Okay? All right. So I will see you in the next part.